being broadcast live through our YouTube channel. Before we commence with today's formal business, I'd like to cover some of the housekeeping issues for us all to follow, please. If you could switch off or make silent your mobile phone, keep your microphone switched off at all times unless invited to speak by myself as the chair. And when invited to speak, please switch on the microphone nearest to you and introduce yourself. So with that, we'll move on to the agenda. Item 1 is public questions. We've received one public question for today's meeting. The question is from Mr. Alan Brown, Chair of the Riverside Residents Association. Mr. Brown, please could you ask your question? Thank you.
Good morning. My question is noted from Cabinet papers a sum of £10 million has been ring-fenced for enhancing customer experience and facilities at Chesley Street and Seaham Leisure Centres. We'd like to know exactly what this funding will deliver, because it's clear that it's not enough to build a new leisure centre in Chesley Street, which was promised and consulted on back in 2022. In tandem with this, the residents of Chesley Street are still awaiting the outcome of a reconsultation on Riverside and Rosebery sites, which took place well over a year ago. Our question, therefore, is, today, can Cabinet give assurance to residents of Chesley Street that they will deliver our new leisure centre building and provide us with a timescale when vision will become reality and building work actually starts? And can they assure us that they will give full respect to the views of local residents and that the ill-thought-out proposals relating to the overdevelopment of the Riverside by turfing up valuable green community space and creating a football hub will not be going ahead? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Brown. Can I ask Councillor James Rowlandson, the Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Resources, Investments and Assets, to respond, please?
Thank you, Chair. Can I thank Mr. Brown for his question? The Council is facing unprecedented financial pressure as we set out our budget for 24-25 and into future years. The costs of delivering the original programme aspirations have increased from the original 62.8 million estimate to in excess of 100 million because of inflationary pressures outside of the Council's control. To deliver on the original aspirations, we would need a further £48 million of capital expenditure, which is unaffordable and unsustainable at this time, as we are facing unprecedented cost pressures and have no certainty around future financial settlements beyond 24-25. In the current financial context and budget pressures facing the Council at this time, taking on additional borrowing that would be required to fund that level of increase in capital expenditure is not affordable. However, the aspiration of the Council remains unchanged and new build centres remain very much part of our future plans as and when funding allows. We are, however, committing a further £10 million to our capital programme budget to improve Chesley Street and Seaham Leisure Centres. These improvements will be focused on making a positive difference to the experience of customers, enhance the site's facilities and ensure that the centres are structurally and mechanically sound going forward. Once the Council's budget report has been agreed by Council, a plan for the investment of the £10 million of additional investment in these centres will be developed and we will share these proposals as soon as possible. Proposals for the Riverside have reached a well-developed stage and have been subject to significant community consultation and engagement. Whilst being deliverable proposals, consultation outcomes showed that the plans attracted various areas of feedback and concern. A significant element of the funding envelope earmarked to the Riverside project was predicated on a self-financing proposition, whereby the uplifted usage and income from the redeveloped facilities would pay for the majority of the capital borrowing. On the balance of feedback, through consultation to date, any project taken forward at the Riverside needs to be considerate of wider opportunities of physical activity and community engagement, and target investment to derive the most benefit for the broad spectrum of the community. This changes the context considerably from the previous plans and proposals that were consulted on, which were largely based upon self-financing developments at the site. Given this change in emphasis, it will be necessary to continue to manage the Riverside in its current format for the time being. The Council can then proceed to explore subsequent opportunities with stakeholders to develop the wider site, with such developments predicated upon sustainable funding opportunities becoming available. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, James. Okay, we'll move on to item 2, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of January 2024. Can I have a mover for the minutes, please?
Chair, move those minutes, please.
Thank you. And a seconder, please?
Second those minutes, Chair.
Thank you. Can we agree the minutes are a correct record? Agreed. Okay, I can confirm that the minutes are agreed. Item 3 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations from members? Yes, Councillor Henderson?
Yes, Chair. I have a declaration of interest in item 6, which is the closure of Rookhope School. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted. Okay, item 4, the medium-term financial plan 2024-25 to 2027-28 and the revenue and capital budget for 2024-25. Can I ask Paul Darby, the Corporate Director of Resources, to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. This report presents the budget proposals for 24-25, both revenue and capital, and our medium-term financial plan forecast for the period 24-25 to 27-28. As this is the budget report, there are a number of statutory requirements that wrap around the budget setting process which are addressed in this report and require Cabinet and Council approval. This includes the pay policy, which is a requirement of the Localism Act and sets out our arrangements for Chief Officer's pay and how this relates to the lowest paid employees, and that's attached at Appendix 13. Our Treasury Management Strategy and Prudential Indicators, which are attached at Appendix 14, and also attaches the Council's Property Investment Strategy, which we review on an annual basis, and this is attached at Appendix 15. Members will see that the capital strategy has been amended this year to make a clearer link between this and the strategic aims and objectives as set out in the Council plan. We've also sought to link individual capital investments in the current and proposed programme to corporate plan priorities. These amendments seek to address a recommendation by CIPFA in the recent peer review. The report and our budgets for next year and beyond have been prepared against a backdrop of significant inflationary and demand pressures. They have been prepared in the context of significant uncertainty that exists beyond 24-25 in terms of government funding levels also. The report provides an overview of the autumn statement announcements and the provisional local government finance settlement for 24-25 that was published last year, and importantly, reflects the announcements made on the 24th of January and the final local government finance settlement published on the 5th of February. The budget proposals in this report will be considered by full Council on the 28th of February, and they build on the previous reports considered by Cabinet throughout the year in July and October last year, and again in January this year. The report includes an advice note prepared by the Monitoring Officer, setting out the responsibilities of all members with regards to facilitating the setting of a balanced budget and the implications of not doing so. This is attached to the report at Appendix 7. As members will see, the report is very comprehensive. There is an additional, and sets out that we will receive next year an additional £33.1 million of government grant funding and business rates income from the increases that will be applied. However, £2.88 million of this is ring-fenced to adult social care discharge, reducing the core increase in resources to £30.3 million. Whilst our core spending power increase is slightly above the England average next year, this factors in an assumed 4.99% increase in council tax and also assumes that our council tax base will increase by £3 million next year, when in fact it will only increase by £850,000. The council, as it has for a number of years now, still lags well behind the national average in terms of core spending power per dwelling, as exemplified at paragraph 92 in the report. The report sets out in some detail the financial pressures we are facing and the growth that is needed next year to address unavoidable base budget pressures linked to inflation, particularly for pay, adult social care costs linked to the national living wage increases from April, and for increased costs and demand pressures that continue in our children's services, particularly those linked to looked after children and in our home to school transport budgets, where budget uplifts across these two areas alone are £14.5 million next year. These unavoidable cost pressures total £51.8 million and are set out at section 221 to the report. When we add in the £10 million underlying base budget gap as a result of utilising £10 million of reserves to balance the current year budget, the total budget pressures we face next year totals £61.8 million. Despite the challenging conditions in terms of construction price inflation and the cost of borrowing, the MTFP includes £92.883 million of new additional capital expenditure plans, taking the MTFP 14 capital programme to just under £514 million over the next 4 years. The capital programme, including details of the new additions to the programme and the capital financing requirements linked to that, are set out at sections 275 to 298 of the report, and the updated capital strategy and the details of the individual schemes are set out at appendices 8, 9 and 10. The Council's net budget requirement next year will be £564.871 million, and details of the financing of this are set out at paragraph 238, with the gross and net expenditure for each service grouping included at Appendix 5, and the 24-25 budget is broken down by expenditure type at Appendix 6. Both of these appendices include comparative information with the current year's budgets. In terms of council tax increases, the 24-25 budget includes a 2.99% base council tax increase next year, plus a 2% adult social care precept, meaning that the overall increase will be 4.99% next year. The increase in 25-26 and beyond for council tax is modelled at 2.99% each year across the MTFP planning period. The 24-25 budget proposals and the MTFP planning assumptions are in line with the government's expectations. A failure to increase council tax next year would increase the budget deficit we face, and this would not be a strategy I would recommend to Cabinet or Council, as it would create significant and unwarranted further budget challenges. Every 1% of council tax generates circa £2.65 million of additional resources to help the council balance its budget, or to put it another way, if the council does not maximise its council tax raising capacity as is expected by government, then the budget deficit will grow by £2.65 million for every 1% below the threshold set and assumed. It is for this reason that as Section 151 officer, I would recommend to Cabinet and to Council that these increases that are factored into the budget forecasts are given very serious consideration, particularly in light of the impacts of not doing so. In considering these proposals, I would highlight the most financially vulnerable residents in County Durham are afforded significant protection through our council tax reduction scheme. The budget proposals include new savings of just over £8 million next year and total £16.36 million over the 4 years. Details of the savings included in the budget next year are set out from section 300 to 327, with details of the individual proposals across the next 4 years included at Appendix 4. There is an equality impact assessment and a health impact assessment summarised at paragraphs 328 to 371 on these savings proposals, with more details set out at Appendix 11 and 12. The updated model, which brings all of this together, is set out at Appendix 3. Members will note that even after the additional government grant funding we will receive next year and the additional income from the proposed council tax increases, and after we've factored in £8 million of savings next year, there is still a budget deficit for the council of £3.72 million, which will need to be met from the MTFP support reserve next year. Members will also note that there is a funding gap of £37.833 million across the remaining 3 years of the medium-term financial plan. The risk assessment that underpins the budget and the MTFP forecasts is set out at section 218 to the report, and of particular concern is the significant uncertainty beyond 24-25 in terms of government funding settlements, which are widely expected to be much more tighter across the remaining MTFP planning period. That's if the Chancellor sticks to the taxation and public expenditure levels that were set out in the autumn statement. If the current public expenditure forecasts are retained from 25-26 and local government remains an unprotected government department, then the forecasts included in our medium-term financial plan, which currently assume a cash flat position, may ultimately need to be revised and could make our position much worse. The budget and the wider MTFP strategy presented in this report has been subject to extensive consultation via our APs, through meetings arranged with our partners, trade unions and with business ratepayers. Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Management Board met on the 23rd of January to consider the MTFP update report that was presented to Cabinet in January. Will meet tomorrow to consider this report. The outcome of the discussions to date have been factored into this report, and the outcome of the discussion at Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Management Board tomorrow will be factored into the report that is presented to Council on the 28th of February. There is a comprehensive overview of all the feedback received as part of the consultation across the autumn, set out at paragraphs 95 to 208. The report also includes details of the various dedicated schools block funding allocations, and these are set out at sections 384 to 429 of the report. Next year there will be an increase in the schools block funding allocation of 17.81 million. However, once the supplementary funding we received in the current year is excluded, the year-on-year increase in the formula grant is 4.812 million. The updated school funding formula factors are set out at paragraph 406 and are in line with the local formula agreed by Cabinet in December. In addition to this, our schools will also receive some additional supplementary funding that sits outside of the formula next year, linked to the Teachers' Pay Award grant, with our schools expected to benefit by an additional £6.6 million of additional funding. The high needs block funding is set to increase by just over £4 million next year, a year-on-year increase of around 4.5%, which is a much lower increase, about half the level, than has been the case in the recent years. As members will be aware, this is an area of the budget that has been under pressure for a number of years now. There was a report at Cabinet in December which exemplified the forecast demand pressures in our high needs spending and the impact of these much lower increases in grant funding over the coming years. Members will recall that the forecasts show an increase in in-year and cumulative deficit position in terms of the high needs block, and this is of particular concern given that the statutory override which applies in terms of the accounting treatment of these deficits is due to end in 25-26. At which point the deficit could manifest in the general fund. Should this be the case, then it would cause a number of authorities throughout the country to go under. Our cumulative deficit is forecast to be around £11 million at the end of this financial year, and based on the report that Cabinet considered in December, could increase to around £67 million over the next 5 years, unless something changes with the national legislation or the national funding position changes. The early years block funding includes a 46% increase next year, as the government is providing us with some additional funding to extend and expand provision. There is a £14.9 million increase in terms of early years block, and that fund has been provided so we can invest in expanding universal provision for 2-year-olds, and details of the funding rates and the proposals are set out at paragraphs 414 to 422. Finally, Chair, and I did say it was a long report, I would note that there are a series of detailed recommendations embedded throughout the report, and there's a summary of those recommendations which will be made to Council set out at section 53. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Paul. Can I invite Councillor Richard Bell, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Finance, to move the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Can I thank the officers for this report, which is the fourth and final report we'll consider on our 24-25 budget proposals and MTFP 14 forecasts in advance of full council on the 28th of February. It represents the culmination of months of work by officers right across the council. It includes a comprehensive overview of the budget pressures we are facing, the announcements made in the autumn statement in November, and the provisional local government finance settlement published in December, and also details of the very final local government finance settlement published on the 5th of February, which provided some much needed additional funding for us, £5.9 million. The 24-25 budgets need to make provision for significant inflationary pressures, including the impact of the national living wage increase from April, which has a significant bearing on our adult social care contracts in particular. As members will expect, the cost pressures in the statutory adult and children's social care services, which are by far the largest budgets the Council has, are enormous and unavoidable. This puts a squeeze on other budgets, particularly discretionary spend areas. The cost pressures in these two areas total £36 million next year. The additional revenue generated from an adult social care precept and specific grant funding for these areas falls well short of the cost pressures we face, in part due to our low tax raising capacity, a matter I have consistently raised with government. Since we considered the financial forecasts in January, we have updated the forecast cost pressures in our home to school transport budgets, which will need a budget increase of £2.5 million next year, £1.5 million more than was previously forecast, and for placement costs for children looked after, which will need a budget increase of £12 million next year, £2 million more than previously forecast. We are not alone in seeing significant escalation in the costs of these services. It is a sector-wide problem, particularly acute in areas with higher levels of deprivation and in larger counties such as ourselves. It is a challenge that we must continue to do everything we can to contain. In overall terms, we face spending pressures totalling £61.8 million next year, £10 million of which relates to the use of reserves in the current year to balance the 23-24 budget. Despite these pressures, the budget does, however, make provision for £1 million of investment in our employability services. And additionally, there is around £750,000 growth included to make the find and fix team permanent, to strengthen our information and data governance arrangements, and to extend the park and ride provision so it better services the Akeley Heads North site. The additional funding being provided by the government next year totals £30.3 million, inclusive of business rate increases, following the announcements made on 24th of January. Without that additional funding, which for us has meant we will receive around £5.9 million more, we would have been in a much more difficult position. It is good that government listened to the representations of ourselves and others, albeit action earlier and more fulsomely would have been welcome. The government's core spending calculations indicate a 7.6% increase next year, which is slightly higher than the 7.5% national average increase. Though, as has been said, the 7.6% figure is too high because it includes an overestimate of our council tax base growth. However, we still lag behind the national average core spending power per dwelling, mainly due again to our inherent low tax raising capacity. It's also important to note that the government core spending power calculation assumes that we increase our council tax by 4.99%. Given the financial outlook, we have had to give careful consideration to any new prudential borrowing commitments at this time, and it would be reckless and simply irresponsible to do otherwise, and this Cabinet is neither. Again, despite these constraints, the budget proposals do include £93 million of new capital investments, including further significant investment in our schools, including new builds, in our highways and bridges infrastructure, in furtherance of our net zero aspirations, and £10 million of additional investment in the Leisure Transformation Programme, ring-fenced to Chester Street and CM Leisure Centres, in order to improve these facilities for local residents. The overall capital programme totals £514 million over the next 4 years. This is a significant level of capital investment. It does come at a cost, with £12.7 million of revenue budget growth required to finance the additional prudential borrowing needed across this MTFP planning period, much of which is linked to current commitments. The uncertainty which exists from 25-26 onwards continues to cast a shadow over our medium-term financial planning. If any government sticks to the current spending plans, then there are significant challenges to come in 25, 26 and beyond. The savings proposals we are considering today are largely in line with the proposals we have previously considered, In line with the motion agreed by Council in January, Cabinet will undertake an evidence-based review of the withdrawal of the free after-2 car parking initiative, implemented in January, to inform options going forwards, with a report scheduled to come to Cabinet. In this regard, I'm sure there will be opportunity for overview and scrutiny to be involved in that review process. I would once again like to thank everyone involved in the consultation exercise that's been undertaken this year. The feedback we have received from the Overview and Scrutiny Management Board is set out in detail in the report and has been carefully considered in finalising the plans at Appendix 4. The total identified savings across the MTFP 14 planning period are £16.36 million, with £8.1 million or 49.4% of those savings falling into next year. The budget proposals include council tax increases in line with the government's expectations. They take into account the council tax core referendum limits of 2.99% and the adult social care precepting powers of an additional 2% next year. The forecasts for 25-26 and beyond only factor in a 2.99% increase in council tax, as it is unclear whether the adult social care precept will continue beyond 24-25. The clear expectation from government is that these additional council tax flexibilities are taken, and as we have heard, the strong recommendation from our Section 151 officer is that they are taken. Assuming that Council agrees that the council tax increase is factored into this report and the updated savings proposals are delivered, then the budget shortfall next year will be 3.72 million, rising to 37.8 million over the 4-year planning period. As is always the case, the estimates beyond next year are more indicative and will undoubtedly change, and there is significant uncertainty over the funding settlements beyond 24-25. Both of these factors could materially change the medium-term forecasts. That said, based on these forecasts, savings of around £17 million will be required to set a balanced budget in 25-26. Achieving savings of that magnitude will be a significant undertaking, and work on these has already commenced. We will have to continue to be flexible in our approach in terms of planning for the next 4 financial years so that we can continue to support residents of County Durham in the best way that we can. A 4.99% increase in council next year represents an increase of around £1.15 a week for most of our households across the county who reside in a Band A property, with those on low incomes, as has been said, fully protected through the council tax reduction scheme. It's important that we follow the advice of our Section 151 officer in terms of the adequacy of our reserves. When our financial resilience has reduced in recent years, we are still in a stronger position than many other councils. However, it is simply not sustainable to underpin the budget much longer from reserves. We need to address the underlying budget position and ensure that we can live within our means. Utilising the MTFP reserve next year will buy us some time to develop savings proposals that will minimise as far as possible the impact on frontline service delivery. As the Corporate Director has mentioned, this report also includes the updated pay policy, our updated Treasury Management Strategy and Prudential Indicators, and our updated Property Investment Strategy. These are all important documents, and adopting these various policies and strategies is integral to us meeting our statutory requirements in terms of budget setting. I welcome the addition of more overt links to our corporate plan objectives within the capital programme tables and in the capital strategy, which have been added in response to an action arising from the SIPFA peer review. Turning to the recommendations, members may note in particular the recommendation at paragraph A1 that will be highlighted to full council the fiduciary and legal responsibilities on all members to set a balanced budget by the 11th of March. With that, Chair, I am happy to move the report and all the recommendations as set out in paragraph 53, including the amendments to the current capital programme as set out in the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Can I also thank our officers for the work undertaken to prepare the 2024-25 budget proposals and the MTFP 14 update report, which we're considering today, and to Councillor Bell and others for their contributions to getting us to this stage. This is the final 2024-25 budget and MTFP 14 report that Cabinet will consider this year, and it sets out our budget proposals that we will recommend to County Council on the 28th of February, including the capital programme and the proposed increases in the council tax. The report builds on the information we considered in July, October and January, and as has been highlighted, our budget next year is dominated by unavoidable inflationary and demand pressures, particularly in our statutory adult and children's care services, which we'll hear from their relevant portfolio holders shortly about. I am particularly disappointed that we have had to find £2.6 million next year to fund the gap between the housing benefit we must pay out in respect of temporary and supported housing linked to homelessness and the subsidy or grant we claim back on these payments. Quite frankly, this is a disgrace and something that ought to be remedied by government. How can it be right that council taxpayers in County Durham must subsidise this? We administer housing benefit on behalf of the DWP. The guidance and funding is claimed from the DWP, and they should fully fund this. Whilst I welcome the receipt of the additional funding announced on the 24th of January, it is frustrating that the government left this so late. Why couldn't this additional funding have been announced earlier? It is not like the case for additional funding hadn't been made and was irrefutable. It simply isn't conducive to good financial planning to have such late announcements and to only once again have a one-year settlement. At each stage of the budget setting process, we have sought to involve scrutiny, and the report includes details of the feedback from those meetings and from wider engagements through our area action partnerships and through engagement with business ratepayers and with trade unions on the budget strategy and saving proposals. It is also frustrating that we still lag behind the national average core spending power per dwelling, and as the report outlines, if we had the funding in line with the national average per dwelling, be it from additional government grant or from council tax revenues, then we would have a further £42 million available to us next year. Unfortunately, we don't. And the savings proposals set out in this report have been updated and total £8.83 million next year. With the additional funding announced on the 24th of January, our overall position as presented here has improved since the previous forecasts considered in January. But we are still faced with using £3.72 million of our reserves to balance our budget next year, even after, as the government fully expects us to do, we increase the council tax by the maximum permitted without a referendum. The additional funding we will receive next year has reduced our reliance on reserves to balance the budget by £5.9 million. Had that not been the case, we would have been using £9.6 million of reserves next year. Put simply, we cannot raise sufficient income from council tax to fund the cost pressures we face, and the government is not meeting the gap, meaning we are constantly having to find savings just to stand still. There remains significant uncertainty over the funding we will receive beyond 25-26, and this, together with unavoidable inflationary and demographic pressures in our budget, remains a significant risk in our MTFP planning and budget setting in future years. To balance the budget in 25-26, we are faced with having to find £16.8 million of savings, which will require some very difficult decisions to be made. Many councils are already on the brink, and not all of these are down to bad decision-making or poor governments, as the government will have you believe. Many well-run councils are getting to the point where they are close to Section 114 territory. The system is broken and is in need of urgent reform if councils like ourselves are to survive and thrive going forward. The problem is that no one appears to be committed to increasing the funding available to councils at this stage. Our only hope is that the government change the distribution mechanism, placing greater emphasis on council tax equalisation and on deprivation. Utilising reserves to balance the budget next year is clearly not a sustainable position to be in and can only be accommodated on a short-term basis. I note with interest the criticisms that this council has faced from opposition groups and some MPs over the use of the reserves since 2021. Yet looking back, I can see that the former administration applied reserves to balance their budget also, with £12.6 million used in 2017-18 alone. What is that saying about people in glass houses? As I have said many times in the past, increasing the council tax is a decision that should not be taken lightly, and we must recognise the squeeze on the cost of living for all our residents. However, not increasing council tax is simply not a sustainable or prudent strategy to adopt, and would not be in line with the government's expectations or with the advice from our Section 151 officer. If we didn't increase council tax, our 2024-25 budget and our medium-term financial planning position would be much worse than it is. It is effectively a binary choice between implementing council tax increases versus increasing the cuts to vital services. But it is important to recognise that those on low incomes in County Durham are afforded significant protection through access to support through our council tax reduction scheme, and I am proud that the County Council endorsed the continuation of our scheme into next year, which, unlike virtually every other council in the country, does not seek to limit or cap the level of support working age households can receive. Of course, we have had to tailor our capital programme to the resources available to us at the time, and whilst I, like many others, would wish to see significant investment, we simply cannot afford to commit any more at this time. And it is important that we follow the advice of our Section 151 officer in terms of the adequacy of our reserves and ensure the financial resilience of the Council. It is more important than ever, as has already been said, that we have a well-managed medium-term financial planning process. We need to ensure we plan sufficiently well ahead, that we take the tough decisions on council tax and on savings, and that we do not use the reserves to an unsustainable level going forward. With that, I would ask Council to note the report and agree the recommendations as set out in paragraph 53. Can I ask Councillor Ted Henderson, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Children and Young People, to speak on the home to school transport pressures, please?
Thank you, Chair. Children and Young People Services have worked exceedingly hard to deliver a high-quality service to our children and the families, including the most vulnerable. There are many examples of the positive impacts we have achieved, such as in November 2023, we received a very positive Ofsted inspection of our care leavers service. Our family hubs were awarded National Trailblazer status, which means they are at the forefront of family support services in the country. Our adult and community learning services has again rated as good provider by the Education by Ofsted in July 2023. Positive inspection reports were received for almost all of our community children's homes, as well as the Aycliffe Secure Centre. As corporate parents, we are continuing to invest in new homes for our children in care. In total, over £6 million of capital funding has been allocated to date, with 900,000 in additional funding shown in this report. Our schools' admission arrangements ensure that almost all the pupils are provided with a place in one of their preferred schools. The county regularly achieves in excess of 92% receiving their first preference place. However, as has been said, there are also very challenging times with high demand for services, increasing costs and significant pressure on the families. Despite our extensive work to manage this demand, we are forced with significant budget pressures to meet our statutory duties in the following parts. Homeschool transport has seen additional costs due to increased demand for children with special educational needs, contract prices and impact of national minimum wage. Our budget includes increased investment of £2.5 million in this part alone for the next year. More children coming into care, which impacts our ability to find suitable homes for them. This increasingly means we need to use higher cost independent sector homes with a large financial pressure. We are investing an additional £12 million in the budget next year to meet these costs, and a further £12.6 million over the following 3 years. Increasing numbers of children with SEND has increased costs well above the grant we receive from the government to support the needs of this group of young people. We are faced with a tough choice, as are the councils nationwide. I therefore fully support the budget proposals and the recommendations for the Cabinet to agree. And I would also like to thank the officers who have set these for the hard work that they have had to try and balance the books. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Ted. Can I ask Councillor Chris Hood, Cabinet Portfolio for Adult and Health Services, to speak on the cost of adult social care, please?
Thank you, Chair. For many years, adult care as a service has focused on supporting people to be as independent as they can be, to enable individuals to remain in their own homes and communities for as long as possible. We've done this by investing in key services such as reablement and intermediate care. In doing so, we have also worked closely with NHS colleagues to support hospital discharge, and through our commissioning team ensured that we have a diverse quality care market to meet people's needs. I'm pleased that we are in the position in County Durham where we do not have waiting lists for care packages, and our performance, with the support of our partners, on early discharge is amongst the very best in the country. Unlike many other areas of the country, we have been able to manage demand, help more people to retain their independence, and reduce unnecessary admissions to residential care, and thereby avoid some of the demographic pressures that other areas are facing. However, I know that the complexity of people's needs has increased, which puts huge pressure on our staff, partners, unpaid carers and services to ensure our services flex to meet the demand and need. This brings with it financial pressures through increased costs of care, and the national living wage increases in recent years in particular has driven huge cost increases into our adult social care provider contracts. Whilst our budgets are well managed, they are under significant pressure. So while the additional short-term funding is welcomed, a long-term funding solution is still needed, particularly for authorities like us where the proportion of self-funders is much less than more affluent areas, meaning that the council must meet the costs of the services people need and therefore more reliant on government funding to help meet those costs given our low tax base and low tax raising capacity. Like my colleagues, I'd also like to thank the team, the officers for their diligent work throughout this MTFP. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Yeah, Councillor Shuttleworth.
Yeah, Councillor John Shuttleworth, Cabinet Member for Rural Communities, Highways and Community Safety. I just wanted to highlight some of the progress that the Council has made in the management of its highway asset. We've continued to invest in this important area, and despite challenges of funding and hyperinflation, in fact superinflation really, having continued to deliver improvements to the network for the benefit of residents, businesses and visitors to the county. This year we continue to prioritise road maintenance alongside the local transport plan grant, which we once again be able to prioritise an additional expenditure of £5 million into the highway network. This now goes alongside the government's pothole money to provide continuing improvement to our classified and unclassified roads. In addition to this, we recognise that our county relies on hundreds of highway structures, bridges, the need to care for the attention in time and programmed way to avoid unplanned disruption. We take this duty of care seriously, and we have now allowed £5 million to go towards additional bridge inspections, investigations and maintenance planning. This is something that this council has not done before, but that will pay dividends in the future. We're prepared to innovate where it leads to better outcomes for all residents across the county. Whilst there are investments for the future, I would also like to commend the Cabinet the work on highways and the highways team going forward on a daily basis, particularly at this time of the year, and in response to the bad weather. Our winter maintenance crews, I think you'd all see on BBC Breakfast a few weeks ago, and Anthea Smith, I think, did a tremendous job of presenting how we deal with winter maintenance, which is far, in my opinion, better than Northumberland and Cumbria. Teams have also responded to 10 storm events through the year, including high winds and heavy rainfall. Our frontline teams react very quickly, efficiently to minimise the impacts of the storms, working collaboratively across the services and providing essential communications to the travelling public. The highway asset remains a priority, and I welcome the continuing investment in this area. And I'd just like to pay tribute to all our staff who work tirelessly through the winter period and also through all the rain, storms and such like. They've all done a tremendous job, and I just want to place that on record, please. And I'm happy to support the report. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Is anyone else wishing to speak to the report? In that case, can we agree the report and its recommendations? Agreed. Okay, I can confirm that the recommendations are agreed. Move on to item 5, which is school admission arrangements for the academic year 2025 to 26. Can I ask John Pearce, the Corporate Director of Children and Young People Services, to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Purpose of this report is to request Cabinet approval for the proposed school admissions arrangements and oversubscription criteria for community and voluntary controlled schools for 25-26 academic year. It's a mandatory requirement of the School Admissions Code that all schools must have clear admissions arrangements describing how children will be admitted and their oversubscription criteria. The Council is the admissions authority for community and voluntary controlled schools in the county and is required to agree admissions arrangements for those schools annually, with the decision having to be made before the 28th of February. If there are changes to the admissions arrangements, they must be consulted upon for a minimum 6-week period between October and January, prior to the deadline for the admissions authority to approve the arrangements. In addition, there is a requirement to consult as a minimum within a 7-year period. This year, there were no changes that required consultation in the proposed admissions arrangements, and the consultation was last undertaken in 2022 within the 7-year requirement. The proposed admissions numbers recommended for each community and voluntary controlled school in the county are listed in Appendix 2. In addition, the admissions numbers advised by governing bodies, voluntary aided schools and academies who are their own admissions authorities are also included to be noted for information. The full admissions policies and oversubscription criteria are included in the report as Appendix 3. Cabinet is asked to approve the recommendations set out in paragraph 4 of the report. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Can I invite Councillor Ted Henderson, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Children and Young People Services, to move the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to present the report to the Council's proposal admission arrangements for the 2025-26 academic year. These arrangements have been produced following a consultation with schools, other admission authorities, the governors and parents. There were no changes proposed to the admission arrangements approved for 2024-25, apart from the change to admission numbers for a small amount of schools in the academies. The admission arrangements ensure that as many parents as possible are provided with a place at one of their preferred schools. The county regularly achieves this in excess of 92% of pupils receiving their first preference of primary and secondary school. This comfortably exceeds the first preference percentage met by other councils, both regionally and nationally. The education remains a key priority of the Council, and the positive outcome we seek to achieve are contributed to by pupils being provided with places in schools their parents and carers want them to attend. I recommend this report and the decision it takes, asking Cabinet to agree. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Ted. Can I invite Councillor Chris Hood, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Adult and Health Services, to second the report?
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to second this report, which asks Cabinet to agree the admission arrangements for 2025-26. The admission arrangements outlined in the report are clear, easy to understand, and therefore will help parents and carers when deciding which schools they would prefer their child to attend. It is pleasing to note that the Council continues to enable a high percentage of pupils to be offered a place at their preferential school. I therefore second the report and the decision it asks Cabinet to agree. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chris. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to the report? Okay, can we agree the report and its recommendations? Agreed. Okay, I can confirm the recommendations are agreed. Item 6 is the proposal to close Rookup Primary School on the 31st of August 2024. Can I ask John Pearce, Corporate Director of Children and Young People Services, to present this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of the report is to request Cabinet approval to close Rookup Primary School on the 31st of August 24 in line with the local authority's duties under the Education Inspections Act 2006. Rookup Primary School has the lowest pupil numbers of any school in the county, and currently only 5 pupils are enrolled in this academic year. It is important we ensure pupils are able to access the breadth of curriculum and social development they need as part of a high-quality education. To achieve this, we are currently using the flexibilities provided by the Durham Dales Federation, with all pupils on roll at Rookup Primary accessing their education on site at St John's Chapel Primary School. No preferences have been expressed for a place in reception in either September 22 or September 23 at Rookup, and there is no anticipated development in the area that is likely to have a material impact on pupil numbers. Since it was established in September 2019, the Durham Dales Federation has successfully operated across its member schools with single governance and leadership enabling delivery of a broad curriculum. Hampstead Primary School has recently joined the Federation, bringing greater scale and resilience. If this proposal was to proceed, 3 schools would remain in the Federation: St John's Chapel, Hampstead and Wearhead. In line with the national guidance, it was agreed to start the consultation on the proposal to close with an initial non-statutory consultation between the 18th of September 23 and the 29th of October 23. This included meetings with the governing body and virtual events held for parents, the wider community and other stakeholders. There were 22 responses in total to this stage of consultation. 10 of those responses strongly disagreed with the proposal, 3 disagreed, 8 strongly agreed, and 1 neither agreed or disagreed. The report in paragraphs 28 and 29 set out the themes raised by those responding, both in agreement and disagreement with the proposal. Following consideration of the initial consultation responses, a decision was made to publish a statutory notice with the proposal to close the school. Although slightly more responses in the initial consultation did not support the proposal, no alternatives were put forward to evidence how sustainable numbers could be achieved or alternative viable options to the proposal. Following publication of the statutory notice on 16th of November 2023, a 4-week representation period opened, during which further comments or representations could be made by any interested party. That representation period closed on the 14th of December 23, with no responses being received during that period. In the report, paragraph 41 outlines all of the considerations Cabinet as a decision maker must take into account in line with the statutory guidance when reaching a decision, and all the relevant evidence against each of those factors. At the conclusion of the statutory process, officers believe the recommendation in the report provides the best future option for children, parents, the school and the communities it serves due to the impact on educational outcomes, pupil numbers, site issues and sustainable and equitable finances. Cabinet is asked to approve the recommendation in paragraph 14 to close Rookup Primary School with effect from 31st of August 24. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Can I invite Councillor Alan Shield, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Equality and Inclusion, to move the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. I propose and support this report, which asks Cabinet to agree the proposal to close Rookup Primary School on the 31st of August 2024. I appreciate that the school reorganisation, particularly school closures, can be an area of concern, as local communities often see a school as being at the heart of the community and sometimes cannot immediately agree with the need for change. However, this report makes a compelling case for the closure of Rookup Primary School. Schools need to be sustainable to meet the challenges in a rapidly changing educational environment. Currently, there are only 5 pupils on roll at the school, which will impact on the school's viability and make it difficult to provide children with a broad and balanced curriculum. The 5 children on roll are currently being taught at St John's Chapel Primary School. The objectives of this proposal are to significantly enhance the quality of education provision for these children within local communities, whilst ensuring that the choice of provision and curriculum breadth are enhanced. We already have seen how the breadth of curriculum and the opportunity for social development of Rookup children has been enhanced by them being educated at St John's Chapel. We firmly believe that this can only continue if they continue to be taught there long term. Schools are funded through the Dedicated Schools Grant and operate to delegated budgets, which are the responsibility of individual governing bodies. The national funding formula puts more funding into pupil-led factors than school-led factors, which could create longer-term challenges for smaller schools because of the increase in pupil-led funding will be of less benefit to schools with smaller numbers of pupils. Rookup Primary School has the lowest pupil numbers of any school in County Durham and serves the least populated part of the county. As previously stated, there are currently only 5 children on roll and no pupils started in reception in September 2022 nor September 2023. There is no anticipated development in this part of the county that will bring about an increase in these numbers. This clearly indicates that the school cannot remain financially or educationally viable. Although the most recent Ofsted inspection at Rookup in 2017 judged the school to be good, Ofsted did draw attention to the fact that those pupils with low starting points did not make as much progress as their peers, and that improving the quality of learning in early years remained a focus so that children could be challenged to reach their full potential in all areas of their early years curriculum. The proposal, therefore, is to close Rookup Primary School on the 31st of August 2024 and for the children in that area to be educated in a larger school that allows for more social interaction and which provides a broader education, which will provide a sustainable model to improve education outcomes in the area. Therefore, educationally, it is in the best interest of children and their families. The report also details the consultation undertaken by the Council on the proposal to close Rookup Primary School and the responses received to that consultation. It needs to be acknowledged that 59% of the responses did not support the proposal to close the school, but they did not suggest or propose any practical alternative solutions for the education of the children in the area. Of those who did support the proposal, one such respondent is the governing body, who have concluded, albeit reluctantly, that the closure of the school is the only long-term viable option. I commend the report and the decision it asks Cabinet to agree the proposal to close Rookup Primary School at the set date. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Alan. Can I invite Councillor Chris Hood, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Adult and Health Services, to second the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'd normally say I'm pleased to second the report, but I think I'd prefer in this case to say I'm satisfied to second this report, which asks Cabinet to agree the proposal to close Rookup Primary School on the 31st of August 2024. Closing a local school, especially in a remote rural area, is not a decision that can be made easily, but having considered all of the factors alluded to in the report, unfortunately there is no alternative to closing Rookup Primary School. As Councillor Shield has stated, this proposal provides a solution to the issues currently being faced by Rookup Primary School of extremely low to zero pupil numbers and the consequent impact on the quality of education and social experiences the school can provide. The proposal to close Rookup Primary School is in the best interests of children and their families from an educational perspective, and it will therefore have a positive impact for those living in the local area. Closing Rookup Primary School is the only means of providing a sustainable future for education in the Upper Durham Dales area, and that the proposal was the correct one on which to consult due to low pupil numbers and financial viability. The funding required to keep Forest of Teesdale Primary School open can be more effectively allocated to other schools. If the school closes, cost saving of £128,000 per annum will be made. This funding can be more effectively utilised elsewhere across the education system. Schools need to be sustainable to meet the challenges in a rapidly changing educational environment. The objectives of this proposal are to significantly enhance the quality of education provision for children within the rural location of Rookup. The 5 pupils currently enrolled at the school are being educated at St John's Chapel Primary School, and the evidence suggests they are developing both educationally and socially. The fact that most respondents, including the Durham Dales Federated Governing Body, support this proposal indicates that they clearly see the educational benefits it will bring about. Those respondents who do not support it have not suggested alternative practical solutions for the education of children and young people living in the area. I therefore second the report and the decision it asks Cabinet to agree. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chris. I believe Councillor Henderson wanted to say something before you leave. No, you don't. Okay. Councillor Shuttleworth.
I just wanted to say, it's a hard thing to do this today, but I accept that there's only 5 kids at the school, and the school's been there since 1872. Had Blue Circle not closed the cement works in 2002, there was 72 kids taken out of schools, there's 55 families moved away. Probably those 72 kids would add another 2 kids that put 144 kids into the schools. We are where we are. I don't like it, but I'm sorry to say the kids will get a better education within a bigger grouping. And if you go back to 1980, there was actually 108 in St John's Chapel then. If you put Hampsley way ahead and St John's and Rookup together now, there's not 108. And I think it's just a thing where, you know, people in the lakes, there's no houses for people to buy in the lakes for second homes. People are buying second homes in such as Rookup, St John's Chapel and the west of the county, and it's not helpful to the local economy, and the sooner some jobs come along there, the better. But in principle, I can't object to it. I don't object to it.
Sorry, just 1 second, John. Councillor Henderson, you declared an interest, so I need you to leave the room, and then we'll call you back in once we've made a decision. Sorry.
Just to reiterate, sorry.
Just hang on 1 second, John.
Sorry.
Right, if you want to carry on. Thank you.
Okay, sorry I'm a bit emotive, but it's the last thing I wanted, but I accept that the kids will get a better education at St John's Chapel, and also, you know, going forward, as has been already stated, there's no kids coming in last year, this year, and probably next year either, and it's very, very sad. I'd like to think if the lithium job takes off, the jobs come along, brings families, and we need another school. That's somewhere down the track, but in principle, you know, I'm really sorry it's happening, but I've got to live with that. Thanks.
Thank you. Is anyone else wishing to speak on the report? Okay, in that case, can we agree the report and its recommendations?
Agreed.
Okay, can confirm the recommendations are agreed. Paul, it's all right, Paul has gone. Chris, can you turn your microphone off? Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, we'll move on now to item 7, which is the Council Plan 2024 to 2028. Can I ask Steve Evans, the Head of Corporate Affairs, to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. The Council Plan is the primary corporate planning document and provides the framework from which all of our other plans and strategies fall. This year, we've undertaken a review in line with the annual review of the plan and have also aligned that with a review of our corporate strategy and performance reporting, and Cabinet members will be aware that we've made some changes to the performance reporting that comes through here. The Council Plan forms part of that suite of improvements. We've been out to research what other authorities do by way of their Council Plan, and by and large good practice would show that Council Plans tend to be sort of shorter, sharper documents than the 70-page version that we've had in previous years. So to that end, we've reviewed the format with a view to reducing the amount of content, making it easier to read and easier to digest, and in doing so, making it more transparent. We've continued with the golden thread within the plan through to the Vision of County Durham 2035, and the plan also retains the council ambitions, our economy, our environment, our communities, our people and our council. It also sets out our equalities objectives. Details of consultation undertaken on the plan is set out at Appendix 2, including the changes that have been made to the council plan. There was a couple of key areas that were highlighted. In terms of sort of summarising the council plan, members of the public asked for a little bit more detail, and we've provided hyperlinks through to supporting documents and strategies within the plan so that those readers that wish to have more detail can receive that. We're also asked to look at providing a greater focus on delivery, a more transparent focus on delivery. We've also included a range of key performance indicators within the report, and those will form part of the quarterly performance updates to Cabinet and to scrutiny. Those indicators also include emerging off-log indicators, and you'll be aware that those are developing over time, and government are becoming clearer about those indicators, and they will form part of our performance reporting going forward. So I refer to the recommendations in the report, which is Cabinet is recommended to note responses to the consultation as set out in Appendix 2, consider the content of the draft council plan attached to Appendix 3, agree that the refreshed council plan be considered for approval by council on the 28th of February, and delegate authority to the Chief Executive in consultation with the leader to make further minor amends prior to the final report going to council for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Dave. Okay. Can I thank Dave for the report, his team and all the officers and elected members involved in updating the council plan. In June 2022, Council agreed to receive an updated and refreshed council plan on an annual basis going forward, presented to County Council alongside the MTFP and budget setting reports in February. This is the third review since that decision was taken. The Council is responsible for a wide range of public services and has a significant role to play in improving the lives of everyone who lives in, visits or works in County Durham. We know that our county has both opportunities and issues that need to be addressed. Many of the issues facing our residents cannot be solved by the Council alone. Many require structural or policy changes at a national government level, but the Council can make a positive difference through our democratically elected mandate and role as a leader of place. This plan sets out the Council's ambitions for doing so. This administration also recognises the critical importance of working in partnership with others across the public, private, voluntary and community sectors. This is why the Council plan sets out the Council's role in delivering the partnership developed County Durham Vision 2035. The updated Council plan covering the period 2024 to 2028 does not and could not include a list of everything we do, but it is underpinned by a wide range of specific strategies and service-specific action plans. I am pleased that this year's plan provides a sharper focus on the Council's ambitions with more transparent links to the detail of support and strategies set out within the document. The plan is also an important document because it ensures that our resources are used in a transparent and effective way by setting out our priorities to support our economy, our people, our environment, our communities, and to further improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our council for everyone's benefit. Ultimately, it sets out ambitions and approach to direct our resources, including in the medium-term financial plan considered by Cabinet today. Over the last year, the Joint Administration have been focusing on the delivery of things that matter to local people and local communities, things which will support improved health, wealth and prosperity across our county. For example, the Inclusive Economic Strategy agreed in December 2022 and a range of significant capital investments. We have progressed the reopening of the former DLI building as a sustainable cultural venue and made significant strides forward in terms of turning the redevelopment of Akeley Heads from a concept to a reality as part of our ambitious plans for economic growth. In November 2023, Ofsted carried out a focused visit looking at our arrangements for care-experienced young people, specifically the quality of preparation for adulthood, the quality and suitability of accommodation, and care leavers with specific needs. Feedback was positive and identified that leaders have a detailed understanding of the strengths of this area of service and where further improvements can be made. Senior leaders have further developed and improved services for care-experienced young people. We have also provided a greater focus on our environment and climate emergency response plan, where we have made good progress against our ambitions. We can all be rightly proud of our county, our heritage, our people and our culture. Because of this, it is no coincidence that the County Council has been selected to lead on the culture theme of the region's devolution plans. Moving forward, we will need to maintain sound management of our resources and delivering on our ambitions and priorities, seek to maximise the talents of our people and use technology to provide the best services possible within the resources available. To this end, the plan also sets out the key performance indicator which will be used to measure the success of our plans and the operational services that we deliver. Colleagues will note that our desire to provide transparency has been embedded in a more comprehensive performance report which has been received and commented upon by Cabinet over recent quarters. With that, I move that Cabinet notes the report and its recommendation and endorse that the report and the plan are presented to Council to approve on the 28th of February. Can I invite Councillor Susan MacDonald, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Digital Customer Services and Procurement, to second the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. And can I also thank Steve and his team for the work undertaken to refresh and simplify the Council plan. It's now a shorter, sharper, and as a consequence, a far easier document to digest than it ever has been. In seconding the report, I would highlight that the Council plan is a summary of the actions being taken by this Council. It's underpinned by a series of corporate strategies, service planning and performance arrangements. And together these provide more detailed information on the actions, major projects and improvements which are being undertaken. And to ensure transparency, key documents are accessible via hyperlinks set out within the plan. The Council plan we're considering today sets out the actions we will lead on and take forward as a Council. It's aligned to and complements the County Durham Vision 2035 and sets out the priorities this Council is delivering on. I'm also pleased that the Council has a clear focus on environmental matters and a clear focus on listening to our communities and to local businesses. I particularly welcome the strong emphasis to our inclusive economic strategy. This sets out the unparalleled level of ambition this Council has for delivering a strong economy. We want to build an inclusive economy by creating more and better jobs in a green economy and ensuring that no one is left behind. In my own portfolio, I'm pleased to see a focus on delivering services that are modern and digital by design, whilst providing alternatives for those who are unable to access the internet. I'm also pleased that plans for delivering a data-driven council have been prioritised. This will support ongoing service development, innovation and value for money. In line with the Equality Act 2010, the Council is required to set out its equality objectives and review these on a triennial basis. These objectives have been consulted upon, and the updated Council plan has a range of actions to identify and tackle discrimination, inequalities and promote good community relations. With that, I second the report and move the recommendations as detailed. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Is anyone else wishing to speak to the report? Councillor Shuttleworth.
I'd just like to begin. I thank the officer for the plan. Steve's done a tremendous job on it. It's considerably easier to understand this administration's ambitions and find the details set out in supporting the plans and strategies. I'd just like to point out towards the ambition of our communities, which is set out in the plan. I think that all of us in this chamber will agree that County Durham is a great county in which to live with its diverse and culturally distinctive places. The Council plan sets out how we will build further on these strengths in order to deliver flourishing, connected and supportive communities, whether rural, coastal or urban. We want to develop our towns and villages to be places where people want to be, with housing that meets needs, high streets that are vibrant, safe and attract social hubs, and with direct links between population centres and employment and leisure. To this end, the plan sets out this administration's ambition for better digital and transport connectivity across the county, especially in rural areas. This is key to supporting vibrant rural communities and a flourishing economy. The plan also sets out this administration's ambition to invest in opportunities to regenerate and improve the vibrancy of towns and villages. This is complemented by plans to improve strategic infrastructure, including road and rail upgrades. Housing is an important priority for this administration. As more people move into the county, we need more homes. We're working to transform derelict and abandoned spaces into assets that enhance the overall attractiveness and livability of our communities, bringing more vacant properties back into use and are regulating private landlords to improve housing conditions. We also want to provide rental homes to be of a high standard and more homes suitable for people who are older or disabled. It's also important that these homes are future-proof to remain suitable as their needs increase. Strong communities are a feature of this county of ours. Building on this strength provides an exciting opportunity for us to establish new local network plans to further engage and empower local communities to drive changes that are important to all of them. With that, I'd just like to support the report, Chair. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Chair. I know how members love discussing finance and budgets. So I'll just draw members' attention really to this change in style and format of the report, and certainly under the Our Council section, there's a very good section on finance, which has lots of pie charts showing where the money is coming from, where it's being spent, what government grants are given to different directorates, etc., etc. So I would commend that report to members, and I certainly intend to circulate it more widely. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Councillor Scott.
Thanks. Just a quick point, Chair, and you've alluded to some of this, but I think the council plan demonstrates, as well as all of the incredible things that the council is doing, we are creating the environment for others to flourish, and rightly taking our place as an enabler and facilitator. So I'll just give you a few examples of things that are going on. We're going to see the conclusion of remaking Beamish this year with a new cinema and shops and additional visitor attractions. We'll see the opening of The Rising at Raby Castle. We'll see additional space at Locomotion, a huge new shed there that's going to be the biggest collection of railway vehicles in the world, which is pretty amazing for our county, I think. We'll see planning permission come through for a new hotel at the County Cricket Club. We have already been awarded through the Arts Council Place Partnership, which is another £1.2 million for our cultural sector within the county. Our very own DLI Museum progressing and being supported by a culture trust outside of the council. We've got investments at Net Park, increased demand for employment land. So that just a few examples, Chair, of the amazing things that are happening across the county, all of which you'll find that our brilliant staff in Regen are helping to make happen. So all good news.
Yeah. Is there anyone else wishes to speak? Yeah, Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased that we're refreshing the county plan for the next 4 years and looking at it every year. The children who were at school when the plan was first approved will now be coming into or thinking of where they are going to be employed in the future. And in 10 years' time, when this plan comes to an end, thousands of children will have entered employment. The decisions we make now will have a large effect on the people's lives in County Durham, and the vision continues to evolve. I'm pleased that the work now being done at Net Park Phase 3 will provide a wide range of jobs into the future. Our plans for Akeley Heads are now taking shape and are an exciting prospect for an innovation centre in Durham. Our other industrial estates continue to be full, providing large amounts of employment for County Durham. And the industrial estates at Stella Gill and Durham in Chesley Street continue to improve through further investment. As I said, the decisions we make now have wide-ranging improvements for the people of County Durham, and this administration will continue to make the right decisions, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Is there anyone else wishes to speak on the report? Okay. Okay, thank you. Can we agree the report and its recommendations? Agreed. Okay, I can confirm that the recommendations are agreed. We'll move on to item 8, which is the solar energy and housing needs supplementary planning documents. I'm sure we only come up with these names to see if you can catch us out in how I say it. So can I ask Amy Horhoff, Corporate Director of Economic Regeneration and Growth, to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. The purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet's approval to commence consultation on the second draft of the Solar Energy and Housing Needs Supplementary Planning Documents, or SPDs. At a meeting on the 21st of October 2020, the Council adopted the County Durham Plan. In order to provide more detailed guidance or advice on policies in the County Plan, government guidance allows for the preparation of SPDs, which were capable of being a material consideration in planning decisions, but are not part of the development plan. This report deals with 2 SPDs. So firstly, the Solar Energy SPD, which provides guidance on key planning issues associated with solar development, including landscape, character, biodiversity, heritage assets and agricultural land. It seeks to ensure solar panels are appropriately sited and designated, and that where possible, wider social, economic and environmental benefits are achieved. The first draft of the Solar SPD was consulted on from the 30th of May 2023 to the 9th of July 2023. There were 26 consultees who made representations, and there was a general support for the principle of the SPD from all parties and acknowledgement of the role that solar energy has in responding to the climate emergency. A full statement of consultation is detailed in Appendix 4. Moving on to the Housing Needs SPD, this sets out the guidance relating to a number of housing-related policies in the County Durham Plan, and it includes the implementation of the M42 Accessible and Adaptable Housing Standard, what constitutes a multi-generational home, the scope and content of a local area housing need assessment, the scope and content of a purpose-built student accommodation needs assessment, the application of nationally described space standards in residential uses and including hotels, dwellings and houses in multiple occupation. It also includes the approach to determining the discount required to discount market sale affordable homes, and finally an interim policy statement on first homes. The first draft of the Housing SPD was consulted on from the 24th of February 2023 to the 11th of April 2023. There were 18 consultees who made representations, and a full statement of that consultation is detailed in Appendix 5. If agreed, the second stage consultations proposed will be undertaken on the SPDs and the First Homes interim policy statement from the 26th of February this year to the 7th of April this year. The consultation will be undertaken in accordance with our statement of community involvement. Chair, that concludes my report, and the recommendations are listed in paragraph 6 of this report. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Can I invite Councillor Elizabeth Scott, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Economy and Partnerships, to move the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Members will recall that the County Durham Plan was adopted in October 2020. However, that was not the end of the story, and we are now bringing forward a number of documents over the next few years which will supplement its content. The Solar Energy SPD will support County Durham achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2045 by providing guidance to ensure solar panels are appropriately sited and designed. The Housing Needs SPD will help us meet the different housing needs within our communities, including homes for older people. As a council, we always emphasise the importance of consultation, and we will therefore be seeking views on these documents for 6 weeks up to the 7th of April 2024 to inform their final content. I therefore propose the recommendations in paragraph 6 of the report.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Can I invite Councillor James Rowlandson, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Resources, Investments and Assets, to second the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. These documents being considered today give additional detail and clarity on what is required for new development to be acceptable, expanding on the policies of the County Durham Plan and providing certainty for developers and reassurance for residents. I therefore second the recommendations in paragraph 6 of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, James. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to the report? Okay, in that case, can we agree the report and its recommendations?
Agreed.
Okay, I can confirm that the recommendations are agreed. Item 9 is the adoption of Rights of Way Improvement Plan and Delivery Plan. Can I ask Alan Patrickson, Corporate Director of Neighbourhoods and Climate Change, to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This report is to seek Cabinet approval to adopt the 4th iteration of the Council's Public Rights of Way Improvement Plan, which we call RAWIP 4 for short. Alongside that is a 3-year delivery plan. These approvals follow the comprehensive public consultation across the summer of 2023. All local highway authorities have a statutory duty to produce a rights of way improvement plan, and the plan sets out how the local authority will manage and improve footpaths, bridleways and byways for the benefit of its residents. Recent years have illustrated that our residents more than ever understand the value of using their public rights of way network, not only for the benefits of transport, but also for exercise, pleasure, access to nature, and for the advantages it brings to mental and physical health. The RAWIP sets out a strategic vision and outlines how the local authority will address the extent to which rights of way meet the present and likely future needs of the public, ensuring that the network is fit for the 21st century. RAWIP 4 is deliberately more strategic than its predecessors, and the 4 strategic objectives and the 8 policies contained within the plan were drafted in partnership with over 20 external organisations and will last for the next 10 years. Members will recall that in April, Cabinet agreed a 12-week public consultation, which was carried out over the summer of 2023. The results of this consultation are included in the report in Appendix 4, and you will see that the report here runs to some 80 pages. Such was the volume of interest from the public and external organisations in this matter. The conclusions are set out in paragraph 35, and you'll note that the majority of the feedback was supportive of the 4 strategic objectives and the 8 policies that are drafted in the plan. The strategic objectives, not objections, objectives, are as follows: to manage and enhance the network so that it's fit for the 21st century, promote a network that contributes to the green economy and by marketing the county's high-quality environment, empowering communities and individuals to move more and to ensure that the county's network is accessible to people of all abilities. These objectives received overwhelming support through the consultation and therefore remain unchanged in the final version. The objectives are aligned to other key council strategies and have also incorporated ideas from external organisations through the consultation as diverse as the National Trust, County Durham Sport, the County Durham and the County Durham charity, the Walk and Talk Trust. The headings of the 8 individual policies and the summary of the intentions are contained within the report in paragraph 33. The plan and its policies have now been subject to public scrutiny, and a summary of the amendments that have been made because of the consultation are found in paragraph 35. In conclusion, Chair, the plan is a long-term strategy with an important plan for the County Durham Public Rights of Way network. In addition to adopting the strategic policy approach, we're also requesting that Cabinet approves the shorter 3-year delivery plan, which reflects both the consultation and the key themes in the policy documents. So, Chair, Cabinet is requested to agree and note the recommendations, and these are found in paragraph 16 of the report.
Thanks, Alan. Can I invite Councillor John Shuttleworth, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Rural Communities and Highways, to move the report, please?
Thanks, Chair. The rights of way network is an important and sometimes overlooked part of the highway asset. Members will recall that we agreed to go out to public consultation last summer on a draft version of the Rights of Way Improvement Plan 4, which we have co-produced with external partners. In response to this consultation has given us the confidence to come back to adopt the plan today. The policies in RAWIP 4 will encourage everyday activity accessible to all, which will have positive impacts on improving the mental and physical well-being for our residents. It will also support the green economy and protect our natural environment. This plan is more strategic than the first 3 and has a 10-year lifespan. It will put the authority in a strong position to draw in external funding for a 3-year programme of projects that sets out our ambitions on the grounds and included in this report. The delivery plan reflects important strategic themes such as linking settlements, accessibility and improving bridleways, and gives our officers and our partners a roadmap for investment. As a council, we always emphasise the importance of engaging with our communities, and we've been delighted to see the extensive public response to this consultation. This demonstrates the importance of this plan for everyday lives for our residents. The final version before you today has been amended to reflect many of the public comments received, and I'm happy to move the recommendation, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Can I invite Councillor Elizabeth Scott to second the report, please?
Thanks, Chair. This plan... The strategic objectives outlined reflect the key council plans and strategies such as the council vision, the Move Together strategy, the inclusive economic strategy, and encourages access to nature for health and well-being. This plan specifically seeks to improve signage, bridleways, the Stockton and Darlington Heritage Walk and Cycle route, and public rights of way close to our settlements. It also focuses on continuing engagement with our communities when managing and protecting our routes. It will also seek to protect landowners and residents by diverting footpaths out of farmyards and ensuring that everyone follows the Countryside Code. The changes to a more strategic 10-year approach to our rights of way network is welcomed as it brings an important continuity of approach to the future of the network and brings clarity for our communities and partners. Chair, I'm happy to second the recommendations in the report.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to this report? No, can we agree the report and its recommendations?
Agreed.
Okay, I can confirm the recommendations are agreed. Item 10, the Poverty Issues Annual Report. Can I ask Paul Darby, Corporate Director of Resources, to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Poverty comes in many shapes and forms and varies both in terms of its duration and its severity. Poverty is not just about money, though. It relates to opportunity, participation, and access to services, and its impacts are felt at both an individual and household and a community level. This report presents Cabinet with a comprehensive update on the progress the Council and its partners have made in addressing and alleviating poverty, including the actions delivered in line with our Poverty Action Plan and the support given in response to the financial impact of the cost of living crisis on our most vulnerable households. It includes an overview of the various government initiatives and interventions and the support that's been put in place over the last 12 to 18 months and the updated statistics in terms of the measures of poverty. There is no single measure of poverty, but the key indicators of relative and absolute poverty are set out in the report and make for stark reading. Attached to Appendix 2 is an update against the action plan agreed in November 2022 by the Cabinet, which also includes the priority actions being taken forward to the end of this quarter and over the next 2 financial years. The mission statement and the key objectives for the Poverty Strategy and Action Plan remain in line with the strategy which was agreed by Cabinet in November 22. Paragraphs 145 to 171 in the report summarise the key actions implemented and being taken in support of the 4 strategic objectives that underpin the poverty strategy. Within the body of the report, there's a detailed overview of the various support mechanisms provided to vulnerable households in County Durham, which is extensive and greater than many other areas. This includes our council tax reduction scheme, the council tax exemptions for care leavers, the welfare assistance scheme, the discretionary housing payment scheme, the Fun with Food programme, amongst other initiatives including the expansion of the family hubs, the investment in that bread and butter thing, employability programmes, and in support and advice provision and food banks right across the county. The report flags that we are still awaiting confirmation of whether the Household Support Fund will continue into next year, and if it is, what the funding levels might be. This is a particular concern as we are receiving £9.3 million of funding in the current year and have received nearly £27 million of funding under the HSF over the last 3.5 years to support low-income households. Details of the utilisation of the HSF are set out at paragraphs 92 to 113. The report recognises that the route out of poverty ultimately lies in more and better jobs for our residents and by raising aspiration and opportunities for all, which is why the actions in this strategy are closely aligned with and underpinned by the inclusive economic strategy and the digital strategy. The recommendations, Chair, are set out at paragraph 27 and ask Cabinet to note the update and the priority actions which are being taken forward across the coming year, which will be overseen by the Poverty Action Steering Group.
Thanks, Paul. Can I invite Councillor Alan Shield, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Equality and Inclusion, to speak to the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. I apologise in advance for the length of this briefing note on a subject matter that I'm particularly passionate about. Firstly, I thank Paul Darby and his team, particularly Vicky Murray, our Head of Transactional and Customer Services, and Patrick Hetherington, our Assessments and Wards Manager, for all their hard work that they and their teams put in, working with others to provide support for the most financially vulnerable and disadvantaged people across our county. Their efforts really do improve lives. I would also like to acknowledge the work of the Poverty Action Steering Group, the Advice in County Durham Partnership, and the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and others in helping shape this report. As I have said many times, and as is outlined in the report, poverty is a multifaceted issue. Its impacts are as complex as its causes, but is devastating for those who find themselves in this situation, sometimes through no fault of their own. The impacts of poverty manifest themselves in many different ways. It leads to and exacerbates health inequalities. It has adverse impacts on personal well-being, and in many cases it is intergenerational, impacting both on the older population and the aspirations of our young citizens. It blights and holds back many of our communities right across the county. The updated statistics set out in the report make for very sobering reading. However, there are three specific statistics which stood out for me. It is estimated that over 112,000 of our residents, which equates to 21.3%, live in absolute poverty, which is after housing costs. Whilst this is on par with the rate across the North East, it is much worse than the UK average at 18.9%. And the gap between County Durham and England average has widened in recent years. During the 12 months ending the 31st of October 2022, the County Durham food banks issued over 17,000 food vouchers, 65% more than in the previous year. This is not merely an unemployment issue. Many of our households in poverty are those where at least one of the adults are in work but in receipt of low earnings and therefore receiving universal credit benefit. Tackling such a complex problem requires a multifaceted approach, recognising that the Council cannot alone address its causes and impacts. That said, our response continues to be comprehensive, and we have a very strong safety net in place here in County Durham, as strong as anywhere else. The various schemes in place are outlined in the report, and we can be extremely proud of the support we provide. But we must accept it's not enough, and we will probably never have enough funding to tackle this issue alone. The report highlights a major concern over the future of the Household Support Fund, where we received £9.2 million of government grant from the DWP in the 23-24 financial year to fund a range of schemes to support low-income households, and not forgetting the cost of living payments administered by the DWP, where Durham residents have received over £80 million of these support payments, all of which equates to additional income of up to £900 per eligible individual. I find it staggering that with a little over 6 weeks to go until the start of the new financial year, that we still not have received clarity on whether these schemes will continue into next year or not, and if they do, in what capacity. I have made several representations to ministers in this regard, and yet we still await a decision and an announcement. It is hardly conducive to good planning to have this level of uncertainty so close to the start of the next financial year. The case for continuing and even extending these schemes into 2024-25 is undeniable. Now is simply not the time to withdraw the support. If it is withdrawn or substantially reduced, the impacts will be significant. Tackling the complex issue of poverty and its impacts requires a joined-up approach to ensure people in crisis are provided not only with the advice and financial assistance they need, but also to provide advice and support to progress a sustainable route out of poverty. Ultimately, the route out of poverty lies in access to more and better jobs, which is why the inclusive economic strategy and the digital strategy are so important. The provision of better education, skills and training opportunities are essentially important, alongside digital connectivity and a well-connected transport infrastructure. We must seek to raise the aspirations of our young people and our residents and provide opportunities for all. We cannot do this alone, so we must work in partnership to achieve this. The report sets out some updates on the progress made against the priority actions agreed when we adopted the updated policy and strategy action plan back in October 2022. It demonstrates that good progress has been made by many departments right across the council and also by our partners. The overall aims of the strategy and the strategic objectives which frame our response remain as valid today as when we agreed them then. So we will continue to work together so fewer people will be affected by poverty and deprivation in our county. And to do this, compliance to our 4 main objectives is required. Using intelligence and data gathering to provide essential evidence to allow us to target support to low-income households. Striving to reduce the financial pressure on people facing or who are actually in poverty. Promoting social inclusion and increasing individual, household and community resilience to poverty. Reducing barriers, thereby allowing residents to access services for those experiencing financial insecurity. The action plan set out at Appendix 2 provides a useful summary of the progress made and the projects and initiatives that have been implemented over the last 12 to 18 months, but also the key actions that will be taken forward over the next 12 to 24 months. Appendix 2 will provide focus for the work of the Poverty Action Steering Group, the Child Poverty Working Group, the Advice in County Durham Partnership, and our key stakeholders such as Age UK, Citizens Advice County Durham, the East Durham Trust, Durham Christian Partnership, and the food banks to ensure residents, particularly those in crisis, continue to receive the support they need at this time. With that, Chair, I move the Cabinet report and the progress updated therein. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. As the report is for noting by Cabinet, it doesn't require a seconder, but is there anyone else wishing to speak on the report? Okay, so thanks, Alan, for a comprehensive overview of that. Is everyone happy to note the report? Agreed. Okay, thank you. Item 11 is any other business. I haven't been notified of any other business for the public part of the agenda. So if we can move on to item 12, which is the exclusion of the public. Can I have a mover, please, for this?
Yes, Chair, I move that.
Yeah, and a seconder, please.
Second that, Chair.
Thank you. Is the resolution agreed to exclude the public from the meeting?
Agreed.
Thank you.